Yeah.
All right, so we're on Meet Cortland County, and we're talking to Chief Frank Michael Catalano. You are the Chief of Police in Cortland for the past 12 years or so, and now retiring after just about 4 decades total with the police department. I mean, an unbelievable amount of time, especially in law enforcement. It started out in 1980 as a corrections officer, and from there you worked your way on up, basic training in Binghamton, transferred to the sheriff's office in '84, began with the city police department, and then served in the ranks of everything: patrol sergeant, detective sergeant, uniform division, lieutenant, and then deputy chief of police all the way up to chief in August 2009. So that's just some of the formalities, and we're here doing a Zoom meeting because myself, I had COVID a couple weeks ago. So your building is following state protocols in terms of separating your exit by 14 days and that sort of thing. But it's an interesting point to start out on because it's got to be an interesting time to retire, not only with the executive order 203 that all the police departments have been working on, but 2, the past year plus of dealing with the pandemic from a police department standpoint, So with all that in mind, I guess go into how you're feeling right now and what it's like to wrap up a career this way.
Well, the timing does seem a little odd, but it's definitely something I've been thinking about within the past year. It wasn't necessarily anything that made me decide that I wanted to retire at this time. It was just the right time to do it because it had been in my thoughts as I, approach a certain age and time on the job where, I feel I've done all that I could do, and I know that there's more that I could do, but there comes a point where you want to hand it over to new blood and new ideas, and I think that's good for an organization.
Yeah, well, and it's an organization. It's an organization you've been a part of for a long time, and so is your deputy chief, Paul Sandy. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but I wanted to kind of do something interesting and see if you remember. You can bring me back to your first day as an officer on the job. So you're all out of your training, and you're just stepping out as a corrections officer, joining the sheriff's department. I can't imagine you have chief on your mind yet, but I mean, what was it like taking on that role as a young guy?
Yeah, I never would have dreamed that I'd end up being the chief of police in the hometown that I grew up in. But that's just how fate can work. And if you, continue to work hard and you set goals, that's where you end up. I knew that I wanted to get into law enforcement at a very young age. And I did what I needed to do to get there. And the first thing was to go to TC3 right out of high school. And I got a degree, a 2-year associate's degree in criminal justice. It wasn't only a few months after that. I had turned 21 and I had interviewed for a job as a correction officer with, it was Sheriff D. Whiteman and Under Sheriff Lee Barrows at that time. And I was hired almost on the spot. Within a week after my 21st birthday, I started working in the jail. And I worked in there for a year and a half. And, unfortunately, towards the end of my time there, we had the infamous jailbreak in 1990 or 1981. And I was in the jail at that time. So that was an unpleasant experience.
Wow.
I bounced back. I guess I was too hard-headed to go down on something like that. So back, and I continued, and I was transferred onto the road patrol at the sheriff's department, and I did that until March of 1984. And I transferred to the city PD, and I did that because municipal police work really, really interested me at that time. And there was quite a bit of differences between the two agencies way back then. Today, not so much so. It's a lot more equitable between the two organizations, but back then there was quite a disparity. So it was a good move to come to the city, and I enjoyed my time. I had a lot of fun in the patrol ranks as a patrol officer, and had the freedom to do a lot of things. And that's what you do when you're a police officer out there. You have a lot of discretion, and you're outside in the elements with the community, and you're talking to people, and you're meeting people, and you're enforcing the laws, and helping victims. That was always my goal. I never liked the idea of someone in a less fortunate position being taken advantage of. And that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to be a police officer. So, I felt I did a lot of good there. And, as opportunities for promotions came up, and I took the test and I did well. And, my track record was able to get me promoted to each different level. And you just learn and experience more and more and more over the years. So by the time Chief Nichols decided to retire and I was his deputy chief, I thought, wow, who could have imagined I'd be here this long and then be eligible for this position? And lo and behold, I become chief of police, and like, here we go. But it's been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, and I've enjoyed all of my time with the police department and the city government. The councils, the mayors, the administrators for the city have supported the police department and me over the years, all the while. And it's never stopped. They still support us today. So it's been quite a nice run. But
it's got to have helped too, both you and everybody that you've come into contact with and served in the community, that you were a hometown kid, graduated from TC3, stayed right here, Cortland County Sheriff's Office, then Cortland City Police, the entire way, your judgment, your level of trust, all that stuff has to come, not, you still have to earn it, obviously, but, it shows a lot that you chose to not only pursue law enforcement, but to do so in your own community to make it safer and better, rather than go somewhere else.
Yeah, it was an easy choice for me. I come from a family, my parents were immigrants from Italy, so
probably related somehow.
Yeah, I imagine
way back somewhere back in the family tree. Yeah.
Well, there was a heavy Italian population in the south end of the city where I grew up, and of course, running around the city as a kid, you knew the backyards of every property, so you just get to know your community and the people, and you're comfortable. At least for me, I was comfortable policing in this atmosphere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so talk about I guess the transition during a year where everything's been virtual. Like I keep thinking about the other night in Common Council where you said you never thought you'd have to say goodbye to council. I mean, you're not going anywhere. You're sticking around here, which is right in your hometown. You said you're going to help out with, for years to come. But I guess what was it like to have to make your closing address via Zoom? I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some more get-togethers once we can do all this to recognize, to better appreciate everything you've done for the city. But that must have been tough and kind of like, bittersweet.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping for some more face-to-face contact, but I remember when I was selected to be the police chief, and Chief Nichols gave his goodbyes to the council in person, and I was hoping to be able to do the same thing. It's nice to see people's faces and their emotions and expressions, and you can't catch that on a video screen with your eyes bouncing from square to square to square. It just isn't the same, but I could tell that they were, happy for me and supportive of me. Even a standing ovation while on Zoom. I don't know how people do that, but I saw people standing.
I saw that. That was tough. That was
appreciative. I was appreciative of that.
Well, I had a question just slipped my head when you just made me laugh, and it slipped my head. Well, this is what I was going to say. So I know you just told me about the jailbreak is obviously a crazy memory story because you were just starting out. A bunch of other things probably come to your head. I mean, as you're getting ready to retire after 4 decades, I mean, what's maybe like one story? It could be good. It could be just something that's sticking in your head. Like, man, I can't believe I'm retiring and this day happens,
Oh, I try to rack my brain going, back so many years, and it was just, there's so many incidences that, come and go out of my mind, and some good things, a lot of bad things, and you just don't like to recall them and talk about them a lot. Yeah. So I'm hesitant to do that. I know, early in my career here with the police department, I responded to a fatal motor vehicle accident where 4 college kids were struck by a drunk driver, and one of them died. It was an 18-year-old girl, and it was just such a senseless loss of life that stuck with me forever. But I've seen so many fatal accidents over the years between the sheriff's department and here, and sometimes you get numb to that stuff, but that one stuck in my head. I've had a hard time ever getting rid of that thought process. But as I moved into the detective bureau in the mid '90s, we were very busy. There was just a lot of things going on at that time. There were a lot of violent crimes, and we were handling a lot of things then. We had the unfortunate homicide of the high school girl at Cortland High School in the woods during that time, and the sad story of the Dryden McLean cheerleaders who were murdered. It didn't happen in our jurisdiction, but you know, the accused person.
That's Dryden, yeah. That's
well, the accused person did come through our area, so you know, we were working on it with the state police hand in hand, and those are very meaningful things. And of course, when I was chief of police, we had the 2013 Cortica jug mini riot, where we saw the power of social media and how it could really make things explode, which it did. But in the end, we were able to get that under control, and we had a lot of good collaborative meetings and to make sure that that didn't happen again, and it didn't. So
yeah. Well, I'd imagine your family. I would imagine your family's got to be such a pillar going through stuff like that on a day-to-day basis for 40 years. You know.
Oh yeah, without question. If it wasn't for the support of my family, I'm not sure how I could have gotten through a lot of the things that I did that brought me to where I am today. I mean, my successes are based upon the support I had from my family and from my faith, and for the colleagues that work with me and their competency on how they get things done. I'm just amazed at what my command staff has done over the years and how knowledgeable they are. But you know, eventually you have to go home, and you have loved ones, and they stand by you through all of this. And you know, I'm especially proud of my wife for all these years, my one and only wife, and my 3 kids, because when kids grow up with a police officer as a dad, it's different for them. And unless you have a dad or a mom who's a police officer, you don't know what that feeling is. And then your dad becomes, or your mom becomes the chief of police, and it's almost like living in a fishbowl. And you know, it's hard for children, but you know what, they excel. They're great kids, and my family has been very supportive, and I give all my credit to them for where I am at today too.
You mentioned the great work of your staff and the experience of your staff. It's also got to be somewhat of a relief for you to be able to leave the chief position behind in good hands. You know, Deputy Chief Paul Sandy's been with the police department since the early 1980s, like yourself. You know, he's said it himself that a lot of dedication and work he's put in, you know, to this area and this community, which is so true. And so it's got to be great to not have to go out and search for a new chief. You got one who's been by your side for years now, you know?
Yes, I have complete confidence in my command staff going forward. Paul Sandy will be taking over, and I know he'll do a good job. The institutional knowledge that my command staff has, and that we all had by being in this department for so long, in this community for so long, and then trying to take it to the next steps is invaluable. And you know, when you surround yourself with good people, you're going to succeed, and that's what happened to me. And I know it's going to happen for Paul, and as well as the 2 lieutenants, Dave Guerrera and Mike Strangeway. These guys are great. All of my staff, even the sergeants, the records division Sergeant Penny Guerrera, who was so instrumental in us becoming accredited, which is, you know, one of the major highlights of my career, is bringing the police department to accreditation status.
Yeah, a long list of accomplishments too. I mean, I asked this to a couple other people. I remember State Senator James Seward. I asked when he retired, and a couple others. But I always ask this question, knowing that you don't know, like, what are your plans now? Like, you don't know what your plans are. You're probably just taking things day by day. But I mean, you know, generally speaking, are you looking forward to a specific hobby getting more into? I know you said you're still going to be spending time, you know, in public service, helping out with Chief Sandy if he needs anything in the city police department. But I mean, you know, generally speaking, what are you thinking about during retirement?
Well, I want to relax.
Yeah.
And I want to spend even more time with my family. I'll be fortunate enough to be a grandfather this summer, so
Oh, great.
that's going to keep me busy.
Oh,
So
yeah. That'll keep you
with
real
kids
busy.
and grandchildren,
I don't know how you would have done that before you retired, honestly. That's good. That's perfect timing for you.
well, I've already said I am not going to be a full-time babysitter. So
You'll turn into just part-time anyway, though.
the benefits of being a grandparent is to be able to hand your grandchild off back to their parents when you're done.
That's right. And go home. Yeah, well, we
But
hope you
I don't have any other big plans. I'm not looking for any other employment at this time. But if somebody needs an assistance or a hand with something, I'm always available.
Are you still just are you still going to be holding your position with the Board of Governors too, in the Association of Chiefs of Police, or is that something that gets?
No, I have to give that up when I retire. You have to be active.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Well, I mean, Chief Catalano, any other thoughts that you have on, I always say on the way out here, but I'm sure we'll be speaking to you soon too. And that's great to hear that you'll be sticking around in your hometown even after this month, you know?
Yeah, no, I certainly have a lot of thoughts, and my thoughts will go out to this department and to all the police officers out there, you know, not just for this department, but for our neighboring agencies and throughout the nation. This is a challenging time to be a police officer. And I know that the people coming in now realize what they're getting into, and they have to have a special mindset to be able to survive now. It's just so much different than it was, you know, 40, 30, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago.
And you just had 3 brand new officers swearing yesterday too. So this was probably going through all your head as you were swearing them in, right?
And next week, Chief Sandy will be swearing in another one. And we'll be having 5 officers going to the police academy by the end of the month. So there's lots of changes. You know, law enforcement in general has seen a lot of retirements this last year or two. But thankfully, there are people that want to step up and serve the community in the capacity of a police officer. And I think we got some great candidates, and time will tell, you know, how they do.
Yeah. Well, from us here at WXHC, we're a hometown radio station, you know, so we appreciate all the years of service that you've put in as City of Cortland police officer and as chief. And, you know, so we want to definitely thank you, and we appreciate your time too, giving us a conversation on the way out. And, you know, we wish you the best of luck in terms of getting able to relax a little bit, you know, and spend some time with the grandchild in your retirement, you know. So we wish you the best, Chief Catalano.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and thank you.